Are you letting your achievements define you? Here's how to break free. Have you ever asked yourself who you would be without your achievements? Strip away the job title, the degrees, the awards, the followers, the praise. What's left? This is not a rhetorical question. This is a philosophical bomb buried beneath modern life, and most of us are terrified to touch it. Because deep down, many of us suspect that if we stopped achieving, we'd stop existing in the eyes of others, and maybe even in our own. We live in a world where identity is so tightly woven into success that to fail or even to pause feels like disappearing. But what if that's the very illusion that's keeping us from discovering who we truly are? From the moment we enter school, we're taught to produce, to get grades, win trophies, earn gold stars. Then we graduate into a society that demands more of the same, just with higher stakes. Build a career, make money, buy a house, achieve. None of this is inherently wrong. In fact, achievement can be beautiful when it arises from passion and purpose. But the problem begins when we start confusing what we do with who we are. When our self-worth becomes a scoreboard, and every success is just a temporary high masking a deeper fear that without these accomplishments, we are nothing. I've been there. I've chased the goals, hit the milestones, felt the rush of recognition, and then, moments later, the emptiness. The what's next? The quiet voice that asks, is this all there is? It's a cycle many of us live in without realizing it. Achieve, feel good, crash, set a new goal, repeat. It becomes an addiction, not to growth, but to validation, and it's subtle. Because society will cheer you on. It will call you ambitious, driven, successful. But what it won't ask is whether you're happy, whether you feel connected to something deeper than the applause. This is where philosophy steps in, not as an abstract discipline, but as a mirror. The ancient Stoics, the Buddhists, even modern existentialists, they all ask the same question in different ways. Who are you when the world stops clapping? Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote to himself, "Don't waste time worrying about what others think of you. You have to live for yourself." That wasn't arrogance, it was freedom. The kind of freedom that comes when your value is no longer outsourced to your achievements.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Now, I'm not saying we should abandon goals or stop aiming high. What I'm saying is that we need to reframe our relationship to achievement, to understand that it's something we do, not something we are. That we can celebrate our wins without letting them define us. Because when achievement becomes identity, failure becomes annihilation. And that's no way to live. So let me ask you, if you lost every accomplishment, every resume line, every accolade, who would remain? Would you still feel worthy? Would you still know how to love, how to give, how to be still with yourself? These are the questions that terrify us, because they force us to confront the parts of ourselves we've buried under layers of doing. But they are also the questions that liberate us. Because when we start to separate our sense of self from our list of accomplishments, something incredible happens. We begin to experience joy that isn't contingent, peace that isn't threatened. We begin to act not out of fear of being nothing, but out of the abundance of already being something. And ironically, from that place of inner worth detached from outer metrics, we often achieve more. But now, it's effortless. Now it flows. Because we're not trying to prove anything, we're just expressing what's already overflowing within us. And think about this. Who are the people you admire most? Is it because of what they've accomplished, or how they carry themselves through both success and failure? Often, it's their presence, their authenticity, their lightness that draws us in. That doesn't come from chasing trophy time, TLC qualification. That comes from knowing who they are, even when the trophies are gone. So why don't we teach this? Why don't we teach young people how to build an identity that isn't fragile, that doesn't shatter the moment they fall behind or get rejected? Maybe because we're still trying to figure it out for ourselves. But here's your invitation. Stop building your self-worth on a foundation that can be taken away. Start building it on something eternal, on your values, your presence, your ability to choose integrity over performance. That's where real power lives. You are not your GPA, your job title, your salary, your social media following, your awards, or your failures. You are the one who experiences all of these things, and the more you return to that center, the observer, the soul, the consciousness behind the identity, the freer you become, because now achievement is no longer a cage. It's a gift, a byproduct of you living fully, not a condition for your existence. The quiet trap of success, why winning can leave you feeling more lost than ever. Success is supposed to be the end of the story. It's painted as the final destination, the triumph, the moment when everything finally makes sense. We spend years climbing mountains, sacrificing time and energy, relationships and health, all for that moment when we can declare, "I made it." And yet for so many, the view from the top is eerily quiet. It's not overflowing with meaning. It's not the eternal satisfaction they imagined. It's confusing, sometimes lonely, even hollow. Why? Because success, when built on the fragile foundation of identity, doesn't complete you, it exposes you. You see, when we define ourselves by our achievements, we unknowingly build a life where our worth is conditional. Every win becomes a requirement to feel okay. And when we finally reach the top, we expect a payoff. Emotional, spiritual, existential. But success is not designed to do that. It can't fill a void that was never meant to be filled with applause, numbers, or prestige. And so we arrive at the peak, and instead of fulfillment, we feel fear. Fear that we'll lose what we've built. Fear that it wasn't enough. Fear that we now have to maintain a version of ourselves we're still unsure we even like. This is the quiet trap. It's not the failure that breaks you, it's the success that reveals how fragile your definition of you really is. Because once you've achieved what you thought would complete you, and it doesn't, then what? You can either double down and chase bigger goals, hoping the next level will finally deliver the feeling you crave, or you can stop and ask a much harder question. Why did I believe this would define me in the first place? That question is a crack in the illusion. It's the beginning of truth. But it's also painful because it requires you to admit that maybe you've been chasing the wrong thing for the right reason. You wanted to feel whole. You wanted to feel seen, valued, safe. That's not wrong. It's deeply human. But the problem is that no amount of external success can give you what only an internal sense of self can create. Let's go deeper. Have you ever achieved something significant only to feel an emptiness right after? That's not failure. That's your soul telling you it's time to look inward. It's a sacred invitation to shift from performance to presence, from external validation to internal alignment. Because real success, lasting, fulfilling, soul-deep success, doesn't start with what you do, it starts with who you are when there's nothing left to prove. And this isn't just philosophy, it's deeply practical. When you stop chasing success as your identity, you begin to create from a place of freedom. You take risks not to impress, but to express. You build businesses, write books, make art, or mentor others. Not to be someone, but because you already are someone. That shift changes everything. It brings ease, it brings joy, it brings resilience. You're no longer terrified of losing your status because your worth doesn't rise and fall with your resume. But to make that shift, you have to face a difficult truth. The version of success you've been chasing may have been someone else's definition all along. Maybe it was your parents' dream. Maybe it was society's metric. Maybe it was a reaction to your own insecurities. But was it yours? Did it reflect your values, your essence, your unique way of being in the world? This is where liberation begins, not in abandoning success, but in redefining it. In asking, what does success look like if it's no longer about proving anything? What would I pursue if I already felt complete? What would I create if I wasn't afraid of being invisible? When you begin to ask those questions, the trap starts to loosen. You begin to step outside the system of endless striving, and you start to build a life that feels like yours, not one that just looks impressive from the outside. That life may be quieter, less flashy, but it will be full of intention, full of peace, full of moments that matter, not just metrics that impress. So I'll ask you again, have you reached a success that left you emptier than expected? And if so, what might that emptiness be trying to teach you? The ego's masquerade, why you're not the person your achievements want you to be. There's a moment, often subtle but seismic, when you realize the person you've been performing as isn't quite you. It's a version of you crafted out of effort, expectation, and ego. A mask perfectly molded by achievements. This version smiles when praised, works tirelessly to maintain the image, and panics when it starts to slip. But beneath the surface, there's a quieter self, one that watches it all with growing unease. That's the real you, the one that's been waiting for you to step out from behind the masquerade. The ego is not inherently evil, it's a tool, a function of the mind designed to help us navigate the world. But when the ego becomes the architect of our identity, we start to believe that we are the mask we wear. We start to believe we are the job title, the accolades, the lifestyle, the curated image. And slowly we trade authenticity for admiration. We forget how to be because we're so busy managing how we're seen. Your achievements, as impressive as they may be, have their own agenda. They want to survive, they want to grow, they want to be preserved at all costs. And so they whisper to your ego, keep going, don't slow down, don't show weakness, don't admit you're tired or lost or unsure. The result? You become imprisoned by the very success you once celebrated. You start living for your achievements instead of living through them. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The version of you that your achievements want you to be is often a distortion. It's a projection based on what others admire, not what you actually value. And the longer you stay in that role, the more disconnected you become from your essence. You might be admired, but you won't feel understood. You might be respected, but you won't feel seen. You might be successful, but you won't feel whole. So, what's the way out? It starts with brutal honesty. You have to ask yourself, who am I when I'm not achieving? Who am I when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when there's nothing left to prove? And if the answer terrifies you, or if you don't know the answer at all, good. That's where the real journey begins. Because beneath the layers of performance lies the self that's been yearning to breathe. The self that values meaning over metrics. The self that doesn't need to impress, only to express. The self that isn't afraid to fail because it knows that failure is part of becoming. That self isn't flashy, but it's free. And freedom, inner freedom, is the rarest and most valuable achievement of all. To reclaim that self, you'll have to disappoint your ego. You'll have to let go of the need to be seen as endlessly competent, endlessly successful, endlessly on. You'll have to risk being misunderstood. You'll have to learn how to sit in stillness, in not doing, in the presence of your own being. And that's hard, especially in a culture that rewards performance and punishes vulnerability. But it's necessary, because the alternative is spiritual suffocation. It's living a life perfectly curated on the outside and empty on the inside. It's reaching the end of your life and realizing you never actually lived, only performed. And no amount of success can compensate for that loss. So ask yourself, what parts of my life exist only to preserve an image? What would I let go of if I no longer needed to impress anyone? What would my life look like if I were guided by truth instead of ego? These questions aren't easy, but they are essential, because you are not the person your achievements want you to be. You are something deeper, something older than your resume and more enduring than your reputation. You are not a role to be played. You are a soul to be lived. And when you begin to live from that place, your achievements become tools, not shackles. They serve your truth rather than obscure it. You stop chasing validation, you stop curating your life for applause, and you start living in alignment with your values, your intuition, your deepest purpose. That's the real success. And you don't need a trophy for that. You just need the courage to take off the mask. The art of being, how to live beyond achievement and still matter. What if your life mattered simply because you exist? What if you didn't have to earn your place in the world through relentless effort, through stacked accomplishments and bullet-pointed resumes? This is the radical shift that terrifies the ego and liberates the soul. The idea that your worth is not a reward you chase, but a reality you remember. Living beyond achievement doesn't mean you stop striving or contributing. It means you stop tying your identity to the outcome. It means you finally give yourself permission to be without needing to constantly become. In the stillness of being, there is a richness that achievement can't touch. There's a depth that only emerges when the noise of performance quiets, when you no longer need to prove your value and you begin to explore what you actually value. That space is where presence lives. It's where genuine creativity flows, where relationships deepen, where joy returns not as a product of success, but as a natural expression of alignment. You stop asking, what can I produce to be worthy, and start asking, what feels true to me right now? From that place, the things you do create, whether it's writing, building, parenting, leading, healing, carry a different energy. They're not driven by scarcity, but by abundance. Not by fear of insignificance, but by the fullness of simply being alive. This is not a retreat from ambition, it's a redefinition of it. You still have goals, you still pursue excellence, but now you do it from wholeness, not from lack. You begin to see that mattering isn't something you acquire, it's something you allow. When you stop contorting yourself into what you think the world wants and instead offer the world your truest self, you begin to matter in a way that no amount of achievement ever could. Because now people aren't valuing what you do, they're connecting with who you are. And that connection is what endures. Long after titles fade and accolades are forgotten, what remains is the impact of your presence. Did you bring peace into the room? Did you listen with your whole being? Did you create from your core, not from your fear? These are the quiet legacies that matter. And they don't require a platform. They don't need applause. They just need you to show up, to stay honest, to live as if being is enough. Living beyond achievement is not about doing less, it's about doing from a deeper place. It's about letting go of the need to be impressive so you can become impactful. It's about choosing truth over image, alignment over approval, and meaning over metrics. And when you live this way, something beautiful happens. You realize you never had to prove anything at all. You were always enough. You just had to remember. So, are you ready to stop performing and start living? Are you willing to trust that your presence, your truth, your being is already the most powerful thing you can offer this world? Then, take a breath, let go of the chase, and come home to yourself.